Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and a tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to another DM's Guild review, my written and a video review series. Take a look at the adventures and supplemental material at the Dungeon Masters Guild website. With this video, we'll be reviewing the mini-adventure Dusk Tower, designed by Lefteris Stefanis for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. A review copy has been provided for the purposes of this review. If you enjoy the content, consider using my affiliate links if you're online shopping and supporting me via patreon.com/RogueWatson. Dusk Tower is a 7th level mini-adventure, almost a micro-adventure. It's barely over a dozen pages long, so this will probably be a quicker review, but I really enjoyed this adventure. In fact, this is going to be kind of put on a pedestal for how to design a small adventure. Mini adventures, they are centered around a dungeon crawl, and this one is no different. It is around a wizard's tower, a wizard who has peered too far into the far realm and is, as a result, turned into kind of a split personality situation. However, while that's all in the background and the backstory, that's not actually the most important part for the purposes of the story, which keeps things very simple. And the important thing is that this wizard, Gregorian, has managed to capture an aboleth, which is a very cool creature from the monster manual that I am familiar with. In fact, very recently familiar with, having running Call from the Deep / Ghost of Saltmarsh campaign right now. That is kind of like an eldritch, godlike, tentacled horror creature, and has managed to capture such a creature in his basement and is kind of running some experiments and things on it. Nothing that's actually too grisly that I can tell, although there's some mad scientist things going on there. But actually, the dude's not. The story and the context kind of paints him as not all bad of an evil guy at all. He's just trying to gather information and trying to do it as, I don't know, maybe humanely as possible. But unfortunately, he's kind of delved into some dark areas and has resulted in a split personality. And his other half is very much the Mr. Hyde, is the evil villain. But he doesn't even really show up until the very end. The main plot, which the adventure does use several different adventure hooks we can use. Either we just want to go check on Gregorian and see what's going on, or perhaps we get sent to recover some kind of artifact that he's got. In any case, we end up learning that there is maybe some missing people from the village nearby, the village of Fern, and specifically young women, and specifically one young woman. This is like part of the rumor mill, basically, you can kind of uncover. Now, that's actually a red herring, because it turns out she just like eloped with some adventuring guy. But one of the apprentice of the wizard named Daniello, this very handsome chap here, has been enslaved by the aboleth, whose name is Yvonne, which is pretty funny. I guess that's just her name she's going by for talking with other people's purposes. I imagine they all have these kind of eldritch, really creepy names. And he is fully at the mercy of the aboleth, and he's been doing things at the aboleth's whim. And of course, the aboleth's trying to get free of its imprisonment. So he comes out and he's been sowing this discontent, and maybe even he's hired the heroes, or he ends up hiring the heroes in the case of being in town, which is something I really like with adventures that are centered around a dungeon crawl. It's like, do you just plop the characters in front of the dungeon to where they already have their mission and they just go inside? So the whole adventure is literally just the dungeon crawl, in which case I would count that almost more of as a layer than an adventure. Or do you do what this does, which is still create the proper context for a bigger adventure outside of just the dungeon, in which case the dungeon here is actually very, very tiny. But I really like that, they get to ask questions of the town and gather some more information. There's some nice just fact-finding, just that initial act one before we actually get to the dungeon tower, including being able to meet this apprentice, having the apprentice give some information, have him actually give the players maybe an additional mission or more context about the mission, which is, they've definitely been, I think he's like stealing people or being bad things. So, it's all like layers upon layers, because the players may think like, okay, well, the apprentice is turning on this. It's an evil wizard situation. He's kidnapping people, and the apprentice is trying to, turn on him. And so we got to help this apprentice. And it turns out the apprentice is actually working for the aboleth, who is trying to get freed. And the wizard actually isn't all that evil, although he does have a Mr. Hyde half to him. So it jam packs a lot of interesting story stuff that I was pretty impressed with for such a relatively tiny adventure. He's even set up this thing where like he's hired some thugs to beat him up to further garner like passion from the PCs, which is of course very, a great way of introducing a PC or an NPC that you want to ingratiate themselves with the PCs, let the PCs rescue that NPC, or have the NPC rescue the PC. Like whatever you can do to establish that relationship in an action context, I think works very, very well. So thumbs up for really the entire townsfolk thing. There's also this weird side thing where the apprentice has sold off the statue, and the statue is what includes the gem that the party might be after. There's a cool like puzzle system the players can learn through this like cipher and code phrases in the library that eventually leads to where this sun emerald is, which is just this MacGuffin item. But I didn't understand what the point of actually having it be back at the shop is, other than you'd have to get that information from the apprentice. So that one kind of seems to run a little bit dry for me. But for the quest of, hey, we need to rescue people from this evil wizard, and then we'll start revealing all the twists as we get in there, which is great. So the party arrives there, and this tower is full of stuff. There's no empty, wasted spaces in here. It's only, I guess, 4 levels. I know there's a 5th one outside. There's a garden, which has a whole family of awakened trees and shrubs and stuff outside, which they can chat with them if they want to. But the library's it's a lot of kind of classic wizard guard. So you've got an animated armor, you've got flying swords, you've got a rug of smothering. But I like that the animated armor like speaks to you and ends up giving you the first code phrase, which is kind of like a hint on like the Dewey Decimal System, I think. And then the players can go and find like the numbers, and in that book it'll say, or a note will fall out or whatever that says like a message, and then there's the next part of the chain, which is this quest chain that eventually leads to where the emerald is, which is that part of it's pretty cool. And the reason the apprentice needs the players to help free the aboleth is because he's not strong enough to be able to open the lock to the laboratories. The laboratory is completely cut off from all the servants, everybody else. Only Gregorian ends up in there, and that's where the aboleth is kept inside this, cool with like steel on it. That's all this, glyphs and things trapping the aboleth inside. Whereas inside, they've got a homunculus also that can, transmit information directly to Gregorian, who's not here at the time. Conveniently, of course, he'll show up during the perfect plot moment. The observatory, where they can realize that Gregorian's maybe been like looking into the far realm, and they can, of course, look through the observatory and maybe take some psychic damage and have to go with madness and things, and get an idea of the fact that this guy, even if he's not as evil as everybody thought, he's certainly been delving into some pretty nasty stuff. And then the apprentice, I believe, supplies them with a dispel magic scroll as part of the quest to go save, this woman. And when the players make it in there, the aboleth has the ability to project images. Now, it does say, I believe here, that this aboleth in particular can just kind of use, I think it's whatever the image thing is, but can actually turn themselves, because it won't really work because you can kind of see the whole pool. It doesn't really work if you can just see the aboleth down there. So it kind of hand waves away that, oh yeah, maybe she can just change herself into whatever she needs to be. And of course is like this, oh, help me, I'm a mermaid or something in the water, and the players want to go help. Now, even if that doesn't work and everybody's suspicious, which most adventurers probably are, the apprentice, who is the enslaved by the aboleth, is right there. He's turned invisible and is kind of there with the party. So basically, he's the insurance that he's going to hit the lever and then free everything. He just needed the players to get through the door, not necessarily to open the lever. But the aboleth will still try to enslave people and change her side and basically turn into a neat little boss fight that could even involve multiple members of the guards. There's a pair of gargoyles also that can interrupt and attack the party basically at any time. They're kind of just pure brutes that have been really hired by the other personality of the wizard. There's a butler who is not an unseen servant. He's an invisible stalker stat block, and somehow the party can ingratiate themselves with the butler. I'm not really sure how, but that's in the text somewhere, that they can maybe change the invisible stalker to their side, which would be pretty big. So I enjoy all these different elements that are just packed into this very teeny tiny tower. And also the fact that they're all, the only one that's really like a random monster is probably the Rug of Smothering. All the others feel like they've got some kind of maybe potential socialization with or something. It feels like you're giving the DM a lot of fun tools to work with when it comes to all these different things. Maybe not so much like trap type stuff in here that I could see. Other than, the lever obviously opening the aboleth, and then maybe the peering into the observatory that's looking at the void is, never a real good idea. But, big boss fight with the aboleth, of course. Again, 7th level feels like a pretty good boss fight with an aboleth, for sure, a big one. And then at any time, you can have Gregorian actually show up and return. And this really, I think, is where a lot of the decision making comes through. Did they harm the homunculus? Did they destroy the homunculus? did they free the aboleth? Like, what has happened so far? And then between the DM and the players, you can really role play it, and you're really given two characters to role play, which was Gregorian and his other half. I don't know how to pronounce his other half's name. Iruburisuri. I can't. It's an odd collection of letters. I can't figure it out, but anyway, you can actually switch between the two, and you can turn into a boss fight if you want. And this is a pretty nasty CR12 high level magic user boss fight. He's got 9th level spell slots, including Time Stop. He's got Mind Blank, which of course he can have on himself. Globe of Invulnerability, Wall of Force, which he will use, Cone of Cold, Lightning Bolt, Fly, Fire Shield, Stone Skin, Misty Step. Literally like all the most perfect combat spells you could ask for if you wanted to have a pure combat wizard. This dude has an 18th level spellcaster. Now, they are, especially after fighting an aboleth, they will get probably destroyed, by the way, even though he's by himself as a wizard, which we did give him 135 hit points, which is just chef's kiss for that, because usually wizards go down because they've got wizard HP. But again, the designer said, you know what, even if you piss him off or he switches personalities and attacks the players, he's only going to probably go for a couple rounds, and then his other personality take over. Or the players may have a chance, if they've realized that he's got a split personality situation, where they could roll, for example, a persuasion check to make him turn a little bit sooner. So that adds just a cool element to the fight as a neat little kind of final fight. And I like the way that it kind of subverts my expectations. Again, I'm thinking, all right, evil wizard tower is kidnapping people. That's pretty rote, but let's go. And like none of that really played into it. Instead, it was it's just a wizard. And in fact, it's supposed to be, he's drow, but he wants to unite his people and kind of do things. The road to hell, I guess, is paved with good intentions, but it sounds like he has good intentions overall, but he is definitely going to the far realm and trying to gather some information and knowledge from that. But he is really not an evil wizard. In fact, he's done well for the town, apparently. He's always very kind and helps people and everything. But he's got this now dual personality where suddenly people are like, does he have a brother or something? Because he's acting like a real dick lately. So I like that whole aspect. And then the fact that you kind of go in for the rescue mission, which you learn in the adventure. That's not even the adventure hook. The adventure hook is something else, which could be to just check on him or again find that emerald or something. But then when you start the adventure and you go to the town, that's when you get the rescue mission to go in there and save this kidnapped woman who actually is just gone because she eloped with somebody. That's why her dad's sitting there drinking in the bar and being sad about it. But you go in there, and then there's the big twist where the guy who hired you is actually a servant of a different kind of evil threat that the party then has to take out. So I loved all that twist, and it's only in like 5 rooms or so, like 4 rooms. Like it's super, super tiny. So very impressive the way the designer was able to pack all of that interesting story, development, choices, like all those things. It's checking off all those boxes. It doesn't have the best exploration because it's just so tiny. It's a wizard tower. There's not much going on there, but there's a little bit of space to, check stuff out and, pull levers and stuff. So I don't know. I think this kind of has it all for me, just with a very, very tiny portion. I would love to see the designer tackle some meatier dungeons and adventures for sure. Let's go over my pros and cons for Dusk Tower. Pros: multiple adventure hooks and quest-relevant townsfolk. When you get such a small adventure like this, I don't necessarily even expect you to give me, all the normal adventure trappings, which is just a well-organized adventure summary, options for different ways of getting the party to that area, which are the adventure hooks, and having that whole Act 1 beginning bit where you're actually going to give me a decently fleshed out town. I don't expect like Phandelver size in terms of like here's 12 different NPCs and some of them all these little side quests and stuff. I don't expect all that, but I thought this did a pretty great job of giving me NPCs and just scenes. I guess that's what I'm really looking at for, is scenes that have to that advance the story's plot and give me characters that I can interact with and have fun with the players before we ever get to the dungeon location. In this case, it's a very big one in that we actually kind of get what becomes the main quest in a very big scene in the town. So that's huge thumbs up for that. And that kind of goes with the next pros, which is interesting story twists and developments. The whole fact that you get this quest on a rescue mission and it turns out it's not a rescue mission. It's just hey, I need you to come trap this evil. And the apprentice isn't actually evil. Keep in mind, he's also just been enslaved by the aboleth. So if the players manage to not kill him, they can save him too. He's he's just kind of got screwed because the other guy, turned form, turned into that bad guy, and he's been abusing this poor apprentice, and now the apprentice got enslaved by the aboleth because the runes got faded and everything. So he's really much the victim as anybody else. So that's great that it just adds those kind of layers onto this adventure. Pro full color map of the Wizard's Tower, by the way. Also full color map of the village, which is really nice. So that, you know me, I love my maps. I love all of those extra features because I run my stuff through a VTT, so I can plop that right in there. I believe it only comes in this version, but that's fine because there's no like numbers on here, so you could use that as a player version map. And I think it's all well organized with a nice professional layout. It looks great. It just no complaints whatsoever in terms of how it looks. I think we're getting mostly stock art here, but also some, I believe some actual artwork. This looks like one of the Lord of the Rings elves for sure, but this is awesome. I don't expect anything too crazy here, and I think works just fine. Cons, I got none. No complaints about this adventure. It does exactly what it sets out to do and subverted my expectations. I was very impressed with it. Final verdict: Dusk Tower is a gold standard for micro adventures with a solid little dungeon crawl, fun NPCs, and a rescue mission with a suitably sinister twist. Thank you to everyone for watching this video review. You can see my written review at roguewatson.com. You can watch more reviews and follow our own D&D adventures here on the channel. And you can support my work at patreon.com/roguewatson. Shouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Thomas, Stan, Brennan, Xenocider, Eclectic, Roleplayer Ro, Christopher, Corey, Big Nut, John F, John L, Eric, Tyler, Nathan, Camp Crystal Lake Counselor, Andrew, Daryl, The Relderin, Captain Woody, 79, Stephanie, Andy, Patrick, Jason, Ismail, Amit, Lumpy Spuds, and Koi. And gold patrons RPG Papercrafts, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Dead Lizard, Lounge, Sam, Jerome, Nathan, Fast Like a Tortoise, Scott, Rufus, Carolyn, Jerry, Thomas, Glenn, and Marcus. Thank you all very much for your support.